it can't all be sunshine and rainbows. Like we did with Project Morningstar. You know what? Watch Project Morningstar. It's amazing. Now we're gonna look at a video called BERSERK Rant: How Not to Write a Story. I think you should probably learn how to write a story from Berserk, but let's give it a fair chance, shall we? Okay, so okay, I get it. It's like, oh, I'm taking this from my live stream. I get it. I get that grift, man. I get it.
Love it. And usually authors who are like, oh, I'm just gonna let my characters do whatever and see what happens. Usually that doesn't go well because sometimes while they write, they're thinking like, oh, now I know what I want my story to be about, and now I'm gonna send it into this direction, even though that new direction is completely different from the initial promise that the writer.
Yeah, I agree with that. That happens a lot. And it really happens to me too, as somebody that writes. Sometimes I have this idea and direction, but I was like, oh, you know what would be cool? If I give that guy, I don't know, automated crossbows, excuse me. And he just throws bolts like a machine gun. It goes in a different direction, and it's not really the best thing to do out there, but I think it's fun. If the end result is nice, it tells a compelling story, I guess it matters little that it moves from that idea. To be fair, much in the same way, even Elric moves a little from the whole fantasy thing to the multiverse part. If it works and it's well done, it's good. If not, well, it's kind of stupid, but yeah.
Writer gave you with the premises and so on. So it can go wrong pretty easily. But if you have your premise, you have your mystery, and you plan on unveiling the mystery, like you have the bare minimum of a structure of, the skeleton of your story, even if it's just one bone that you have. And you let the characters do the magic then, but you still, keep it about that mystery, that initial reason why you started the story, then I think that's peak writing.
I mean, it's very important to have a structure to a writing. And hey, if you don't change things around the road, that's still good. But again, there are exceptions to both. You can have a good thing planned out from the very beginning, and it's nonsensical. The Da Vinci Code is one of my favorite examples of this. I'm not sure if the writer did plan everything there. Whatever. It depends on the situation, on what you're writing. And I guess the most important aspect really is that it depends on the writer at the end of the day, how he wants to go with it. Now, the story might diverge and go into unexpected places. Again, see Elric, and it might be amazing. But it might also follow a structure and not be that good at the end of the day. Again, it depends. So I guess you can make blatant statements, oh, that's peak writing, that's not good, that's wrong. But it's a thing that needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis when it comes to reading, or writing in this case. Hey, I guess it depends most on the reader and what he thinks.
See, that's a gardener. Well, when we talked about gardeners and architects, that's peak gardener thing, like doing it right. Doing gardening right in fiction.
I have no idea what that was about. That's the problem when you clip things off from a stream. People aren't gonna know if you make a reference to something you said earlier that's not in the clip itself.
So I'm never sitting here and asking myself, oh, when are we gonna back to the main story? Like, when are we gonna go back to the main point of the story? Which is what I did during Berserk all the time.
What? Like, Berserk doesn't really have a filler arc of sort. Yeah, you can find some parts of Berserk to be rather slow or inconvenient, but I feel like even the little ones, even with Puck, it helps build on the story. It really does. because it shows you it's not grim derp as we refer to it in Warhammer. There is hope in it, and that's what makes the setting grim dark. That applies to Warhammer, and that applies to dark fantasy in general, because you need to have an element of hope at the end of the day to keep the story going, to not be just grim derp as we refer it.
Like, there's the main fucking events in the Golden Age arc, and then we don't deal with that later on. Like, you have...
What? But we do deal with him a lot, in fact. What? You know what, let's listen to... Maybe I just paused it too early.
All these filler arcs, filler characters, basically, and you're just wondering, can we go back to the main point?
What? What are you talking about?
Can we, like, go back to the reason why we're actually here on this journey? That was me reading Berserk, whereas I don't have that when I read Dorohedoro. Everything is still part of the story. It still makes...
Look, I'm not gonna judge if you like that thing more than Berserk, but acting like Berserk is this thing that just stops and it just goes into random directions isn't really that helpful. Well, one of my examples for this is look at Pluto. Pluto is this anime manga inspired by Astro Boy's, I guess, the greatest robot story arc, whatever. And they made an anime out of it. And the second episode is about this blind guy who's a pianist, and he's trying to find the proper song, a song that he remembers in the back of his mind, but he never can get it and put it onto the piano. Again, the guy is blind, and he gets a servant robot. He used to be a military robot called North Number 2. Now, the whole episode feels like filler. It feels like it has nothing to do with it, but it connects things at the end, and it really has a heartfelt moment. And you might think the whole part is useless because it just does that connection, but it helps with the story building. I think that in a good story, like Berserk, for example, there's really no filler, because everything helps to build upon a structure. Let's see what's more out there. We're just 2 minutes in.
Sense. So that's how it's done right, gardening. When you write a story and you let the characters do, you can end up with chaos, because when you start a story, you start with a promise. You promise the reader to be in the genre of, let's say, dark fantasy, right? You promise the reader a story about a guy who's looking for revenge for something that was done to him and his family of friends before. He wants to resolve the issue between him and his former friend who betrayed him. And that's the promise you give your readers.
Yeah, and it's a manga. It's in it for the long haul. You know you're gonna get a lot of it. Like, the promise is there, and we're moving towards that goal. Just sometimes, no. Let's give him. Let's watch more.
Everything else that you do, then, let's say, change genres. Let's say, change the entire point of the story. Change the entire tone and the strategy and how you approach the story. Because if it was a straight line towards that point before, and then you change it and you make it chaos and filler arcs and whatever, you're basically breaking a promise as a writer.
No, you're not. Everything, as I said, everything in Berserk is made like bricks to build a house upon. And just like in 40k, sometimes characters evolve and develop different ideas. They get better stuff in their life, and you know what, they change a little. That happens in manga when it's not something that's serialized and needs to stay the same as Dragon Ball, for example. Goku doesn't really have that much character growth after a certain point because he doesn't need to have. But Guts, oh boy, he needs to have a bunch of character growth because there's a lot of things that went wrong in his life and he needs to deal with it.
You promised dark fantasy. You promised me someone who wants to deal with his inner demons. and the person that caused these inner demons, right? I want to know about that, because that's what you gave me for like 20 chapters, or like, let's say 5 years of the series running, 5 years, and then you completely change it. That's what can happen when you just let loose, when you don't have a plan, when you don't.
But it's not changed. That's the whole idea of it. It's not changed. The goal is basically the same. I granted, until a certain point when Casca gets better, and then Griffith kind of matters less, and Guts' inner demons are a little bit quelched. You know, they're more restrained. But no, it doesn't change. It still remains dark fantasy from one point to the other.
I'm not like, I heard that Miura had a plan, like that he wrote everything the way he planned it. Although I don't believe Mori about that. Like, I really don't believe him that everything was planned from the very beginning when Miura made the story. I don't buy it, because if you read interviews with Miura, he was pretty lost. He didn't know what to do with Berserk. So I don't buy what Mori said about that. But even if he had planned what to do, he didn't really execute it well, Miura.
Except he did. Let's say he was a little bit lost at certain points and he didn't know what to write here or there, where to move this, what to use to have this going forward. Still well executed at the end of the day. Like, everybody gets writer's block. Look at George R.R. Martin. That guy's been on a writer's block for years at this point, and those books aren't coming out. That's clear. But that doesn't change the fact that whatever was in Game of Thrones is still pretty good. Well, not as good as Lord of the Rings, but granted, nothing is. That's just dumb to say.
He didn't execute it well. He went on too many tangents. And if he hadn't planned and just wanted to see what happens with the characters, then that was pure chaos that happened. He strayed a lot. But I
don't think he did. There was no straying. Yeah, sure, certain new characters are introduced, but they're introduced to build upon the story. Again, with the bricks, I really am not hearing any good argument why Berserk really sucks, and I think her video and her points could probably be explained better if this was more structured. Now, granted, I'm not the one to talk about structured videos when I just speak my mind over a microphone. But still, you understand what I'm saying. Whatever.
I think Berserk is maybe a wrong, like, not an ideal example that I took for this phenomenon that I said, promises that are broken.
Yeah, it's not an ideal example at all. Not at all. And as I said in the beginning, it depends on the writer. And Miura can do a pretty good job with what he's done what he did. Rest in peace. The idea still is that it was done good while it was going on. And you know what? This new guy that's working on it is still doing a good job, and I like it. And it's really good storytelling, despite the fact that I like it.
While you're writing your story and just letting your characters loose, other stories would fit that probably a lot better than Berserk, because Berserk was just because an author, didn't know what to do with his characters anymore. Like, he genuinely didn't know.
I don't think that's a major flaw that you can really use against the story, because it's kind of dumb. Okay, he didn't know what to do with the characters anymore, and he found a way to write them, and it still created a good story. He still created a compelling narrative, and we still got something good out of it. At the end of the day, the fact that he didn't know at some point or another what to do with the characters doesn't really mean much when the end result is good. Hell, if Michael Moorcock knew Elric would catch on so good, he probably would have written more books about it. But that's what happens sometimes. Still, the stories are still good, despite your claims of Miura not knowing what to do with the characters.
and then, you know, went on side quests to figure out what else to do while at least keeping the tone of the story, you know, adult with lots of gore and adult materials. So at least he stayed with the theme, you know, darkness and darkness of humanity.
And hope. That's a very important aspect.
He at least stayed with that tone until he just started writing just high fantasy, and it was more shonen with a side of gore. So he even changed genres, basically.
You know, a certain thing that I found really interesting is that we're, 6 minutes in a 70-minute video, and there is no example of this. Now, she's probably referring to Fantasia, when all the mystical beings just break out of reality more than they did. But that doesn't change what Berserk is. That doesn't change its genre. At the end of the day, you can have... Understand me, dark fantasy does not require all low magic and demons and low creatures and stuff like that. You can have unicorns and dragons and other things and still be dark fantasy. High magic and many mythical creatures does not change the genre. And to be honest, Berserk doesn't really change its genre. It stays true to it. It has the darkness of the soul. It has everything going bad. And it has that sliver of hope. That's what's important to dark fantasy. It's what's important in Elric. It's what's important in Devilman. Anyway, let's see something else.
Broke a promise there already.
No.
But yeah, I think other stories probably fit my description better of what I said, how you fail when you just let your characters lose themselves in the story and you don't pay up, you know, with the promise. Whereas that is the main focus when you're a writer. You just set something up and then you need a payoff. Like, you need to come back to that initial...
Now, this just sounds like she doesn't have the patience to wait for all the chapters and read it. Like, yeah, everybody knows the series started some long time ago. Oh well, what can you do? It's not finished. It's not over yet. Boo-hoo. We're gonna get to that in conclusion, whatever that might be, by the way. Because we know Miura left the ending to the guy that's writing it now, which I think was his friend. Maybe I'm misremembering it at this point. That's why I should do scripted videos, so I can have research. Nevertheless, let's continue.
Start as to why you wrote that story. Story would have ended very quickly if it didn't make it go on tangents. No. I mean, even if it's a yes, like quality over quantity, I don't need a long story, I just need a good story.
Hey, good thing about Berserk, you get both of them. A good story and a long one. Like, there's no arguments to make against it as a story. You might not like dark fantasy. Understandable. Not everybody likes it. It's sometimes too gruesome, like 20th Century Boys and stuff like that. But it's not a bad story at the end of the day. It's well written, it's well paced. What can you do?
But that's not the main point. I've already bashed Berserk in many streams. I'm trying...
Now I'm just going to call heresy upon that because that's really bad.
To one day make a vibe check video on Berserk where I just put all my complaints into one video. But Berserk is basically just a Golden Age arc is really good. And the rest is really bad.
Oh my god. Look, I understand why people might like the Golden Age more than anything else. Because the Golden Age is a story about when the times were good, when the times were right, when there was hope in the world, when we didn't have to catch on to the last bit of it. Until, of course, Griffith came and destroyed everything up. I understand why people might like that. It's more it's more hopeful, it's more medieval themed than what we get in Berserk further on. But how can you look at the Lost Children arc, which it was, I think, that's the only arc that really creeped me out a little. or everything after that and not go, yeah, that's good storytelling? How can you consider only the Golden Age as good storytelling, but not the rest of it, when the Golden Age is the beginning of it? That's like saying you like Dragon Ball but never liked Z, GT, or Super. Understandable why, but it doesn't make that much sense, and overall that's not really right. The arcs get more gruesome. Well, I think the Lost Children one is the most gruesome one. The arcs get more in there with the character development of Guts. He goes through different changes. He gets Casca back. He loses her. He fights that weird Bailiff, artificial Bailiff thing, whatever. What's important is that at the end of the day, the story evolves and progresses and it gets better. Let me guess, you don't like Isidore. Can't pronounce his name right now.
Except for some aspects. For example, an aspect of changing from revenge to trying to find a resolution for your negative emotions. That's a good aspect that I don't think was executed well. Not at all.
It was done very well, especially when... God, I forgot their names. When Farnese and the My Little Witch Academia, I forgot her name, went to search for... what's this called? For Guts' inner parts. And they had that whole Doberman thing and trying to fix Casca. It was done well, and it's done well even now. Oh my god, this is just, yeah, you know what, I don't like it, and I'm gonna just make BS up about it, because why not?
At all. So, it's just a Golden Age arc, which is maybe 10% of the manga, or maybe like 30% of the manga, I don't know, is good, and the rest, which is the rest of the 70%, is really bad, in my opinion. Really bad. Berserk, Hunter x Hunter, Bleach, 20th Century Boys, Tokyo Revengers, and Grash Rose are some series that I think the authors should have just sold the idea and let directive manga managers handle the rest. Yes, that.
No! And funny how I mentioned 20th Century Boys and she gets a bad super chat about it. Oh, they should have just sold the idea. Oh, they were not good at doing it. You know what this really tells me? This really tells me that these people didn't read the materials. They might have an idea, they might have seen somebody talk about it, they might have watched video essays, so no reason to watch the anime when there's a video essay out there, though, is there? You can learn everything you want from a video essay. You don't need to play the game or listen to the audiobook or watch the anime if there's a video essay. And I think these are the types of people that make comments like, oh, Berserk is bad, only the Golden Age is good, which is wrong. Oh, Hunter x Hunter, Bleach, Tokyo Revengers, 20th Century Boys, oh, they should have just sold the ideas. No, this is the mentality of a person that got all their knowledge from video essays. On YouTube, of course. And that's horrible. That just creates bad fans, and bad fans are tourists. This is gonna get worse, isn't it?
Better than letting it go or shitting in it. Yes, I agree. Like,
no surprise there. No surprise there that you agree with that. I could have guessed from the moment you read that list that you would have agreed with
it. I agree that a lot of these manga, if they had just had a good editor, a good management, they would have been good. But like this, they're just celebrated because they had iconic arcs, or one iconic arc, and then you stay loyal because of that arc.
It's not just one. I know this is hard. This is a hard concept for some to understand. But if you like something, it's gonna have one thing that's gonna get you in. For some, it's the New Dawn thing in the... Not New Dawn, what was it? new romance, whatever the first things in One Piece were with Kobe. For some, it's the whole Rescue Rukia arc. For some, it's the World Martial Arts Tournament. For some, it's the Golden Age. For some, it's something else. You're gonna stand loyal to it because you like it, and you get more of the things you like. Granted, more so with Bleach, but Bleach is cool, and I give it a pass because Bleach is cool.
But if you're actually not blind, then you realize that they're actually not that good.
I mean, you need to know how, you need to understand something. You have to be able to understand what you're reading, okay? If I say I don't like waffles, if you go, oh, that means you don't like pancakes. Why don't you like pancakes? That's basically not understanding what you're reading. And I think this is the problem with going, oh, if you like them, you're blind because you don't see the flaws and stuff. No, lady, I don't think you know what you're reading. At this point, it's pretty clear.
That they strayed a lot, and everything that made them good is completely lost. That they were something completely different, and maybe if it was a separate manga, then it would have been good, but within that manga that it started as, it's just bad. Like when you compare it to what it was in the past and what it is now.
No, that's completely wrong. It's nonsensical. You have no idea of quality then. I really think there is no idea of quality with this. At the end of the day, Bleach got better further on, if a little bit repetitive, but still got better on. The same with everything else you've mentioned. That's just it. It's not bad. Your opinions are wrong. And you know what? Yes, your opinions can be wrong. Subjective as they may be, you might have bad opinions. Just ask Amos E.
Then it's not good. If you can really say that what it is now, it's really bad compared to what it was in the past. What about the Lost Children arc? I hate the Lost Children arc. It's so dumb. It's so useless. Why was it there? Why does it exist? What was the point? Who said it?
Really? Was the point of the Lost Children arc? Oh, no, it doesn't tie back to the end of the Golden Age arc. No, it doesn't at all. No, it doesn't have anything to do with Guts' progression as a character and probably that inner demon inside of him just breaking out most without the use of the Berserker armor. No, you see, it's useless. It means nothing. It has no connection to anything and is just filler. Lady. I really recommend this wholeheartedly. Learn to understand what you're reading, learn to have patience, and learn to have a longer memory than a goldfish. Granted, goldfishes have pretty decent memory, but in your case, it seems that the stereotype applies to the poor goldfish.
It was the best. I've never heard people hype it. Most people think it's okay. No, everyone, Hutch, everyone I know is like, when are we gonna get the Lost Children arc animated? Oh my god, we need the Lost Children arc animated. One of the best arcs ever.
Yes, it's amazing because graphically, it's intense, it's violent, it represents dark fantasy in its gruesomeness and that little hope in it. It's perfect. And we really deserve a good adaptation of that because it's an amazing arc. And Guts has some pretty interesting progression. But I don't think that matters to this lady.
Think about it. Berserk has 3 anime adaptations, or adaptations in general. And 1997 anime, then the movies, and then the 2016 onwards anime. So the Lost Children arc had 3 chances to get animated. If 3 separate productions decided it was just so dumb and useless that it didn't need an adaptation, then it should tell you.
No, you are completely wrong. First of all, the first adaptation is of the Golden Age arc. Yes, it was a bestseller. It's what put Berserk out there. It's what really got many people into Berserk, and that's how we have this amazing story. First of all. Second of all, the movie adaptations are a readaptation of the original, what do you call it? What was it called? The Golden Age arc. That's what I'm referring to. It's made better. It has more parts of the manga overall and so on. Much in the same way Gundam Thunderbolt, the movies are a readaptation or adaptation of the anime, but it's basically the same with some extra parts that were taken out. And the 2016 thing is an abomination that should never be talked about because, again, it's an abomination and they had no good idea what they were doing at that time. To expect them to understand why they need to have the Lost Children arc animated is like having them understand that their art isn't good. It's just not going to go through it. It's like telling somebody that wants female space marines that it will never happen. It's like telling you that no, Berserk actually is good from a standpoint that everybody agrees on. It's like talking to a brick wall. It's not going to change.
You need to know it's a useless arc that doesn't need an adaptation because it's just useless. 3 separate occasions and it never got adapted into the story. That's how you.
Because 2 of them were not occasions for it to be adapted, as I said earlier. Only 1 of them was, but then again, you can't really have high hopes from that. Yes. And it's very useful. Again, it helps with Guts' progression and growth as a character. It's also the best one to be animated because it's going to be the best one action-wise. Because it's kind of filled with it. That's cool. Metal.
You know that it's not a good story. Like, that's not a good arc. Every Berserk arc to me was at least a 9 out of 10, except the Black Swordsman arc, which was like a 7 out of 10. Honestly.
Yeah, I get it. The Black Swordsman arc is something that, you know, it's hit or miss. It's like the beginning. It's like reading the first Berserk prototype. It's kind of out there. It doesn't really feel the same as the rest. And I guess it's mostly because it sets up the tone for it. And you get really a better understanding of Guts. Here's the thing. I think that the Black Swordsman arc would have worked way better if it happened. Wait, Black Swordsman arc. Is this the beginning one? I think so. Would have worked better if it was after the Golden Age arc. You know, I think if we do it like that, people get a better understanding of Guts and, well, of the character and the story and the world they're in. And because of that, well, more people will like it, is what I can say. Because there's nothing really different from it. It doesn't deviate that much from Berserk's usual standard. But then again, you know how it is. It just happens. It just happens. You can't really do much about it, but whatever. It is what it is. It happened when it did, and it's a good part of the story.
Honestly, Golden Age arc and then the Black Swordsman arc, because at least the Black Swordsman arc it still makes sense. Like, it's still part of the main plot.
So is everything else. That's like acting like, oh, you know what? Just because I don't, that's like acting just because I didn't like JoJo Part 4. That means it's useless and it serves no point. It does serve a point, granted. A point that could have been introduced in Part 5, but sure. But at the end of the day, it does not lower the quality overall. That just because Part 4 exists doesn't mean everything else sucks. But I guess this is more an argument in favor of the Black Swordsman arc. Still, everything is right. Everything feels right in Berserk. I just don't get what... I mean, I get it.
Part of the main story. It was the beginning of it all. It was what we were given as a reader first. And then, you know, the flashback to see how we got to that present that we were given first. The rest is just fucking chaos. You can see that Miura had no fucking clue what he wanted to do with Berserk.
Except you can pretty much see, at the end of the day, it's a story about revenge and forgiveness. Much in the same way as... No. I won't bring that up. It's probably one of my favorite stories out there, but I won't bring it up on this one. Call me a coward. I don't care.
So yeah, like Swordsman was just too edgy for the sake of it. Yeah, I know. But it was following Black Swordsman arc. Miura was just following trends at the time. He's just following trends, you know, edgy lone wolf doing revenge, being brutal, muscle man. And it shouldn't surprise.
Except it's not really there, because you see, there's the problem. This is mischaracterization, the whole arc. You think of Guts as this tough exterior that he presents. At the end of the day, you get to see his humanity there, you get to see his hope, you get to see the real Guts at the end of the arc a little. It just doesn't work like that. He's not making a Sasuke character. Then again, I guess Sasuke is a Gus character.
Surprise it, because Miura doesn't really have any original thing.
Now that's just an insult. That's just an insult, and that's how I know you didn't read anything. You just got your ideas from dumb video essays on YouTube, and now you're just trying to make your own. Don't think I don't see the whole video right here with LGBTQ plus and Griffith. How to make an antagonist. Don't think I don't see that. Don't even dare think I don't see that. Because I see it. I know you watch video essays and that's how you learned about Berserk, and that's how you formed your opinions about Berserk. It's pretty darn clear. You know what, I'm not gonna go through this anymore. I think I subjected myself and you guys, whoever's watching until this point, to too much cringe. And this isn't Kino. You know what's Kino? Reading Berserk. Berserk is Kino. It's an amazing story from beginning to its current point, and it's an amazing story that goes through multiple evolutions. Or I guess it's Guts' story that goes through multiple evolutions, and you get to see it unravel. And there's still more of it to come out, and I can't wait for the next one. This whole thing just stays on the idea that, oh, Berserk bad, but all the examples, there's not really anything substantial out there. I can talk about how the War of the Beast is bad because of certain aspects and certain elements, but you know what's the difference at this point? The fact that I read the whole War of the Beast series, and this lady doesn't seem to have read Berserk at all. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed this, if you could, and I'll see you in the next one.